All right, so this news comes maybe a month after Virginia's death. The woman that brought the attention to Jeffrey Epstein. So she's been murdered, and now they're saying, "Oh, Jeffrey Epstein had no client list, and he wasn't murdered. He killed himself." They literally want us to believe that now. So we're going to go over that right here. Uh, just a second. Guess we're going to have to listen to it this way. And the final moments captured on her surveillance were not even pointed at Jeffrey Epstein's jail cell. But they want us to think that. And I'll go over that soon, too.
Back with our law and justice lead and Elon Musk's favorite story. A new Justice Department memo reveals that the Justice Department has no evidence that convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful people or kept a client list or was murdered in prison. The memo, reported by Axios, is a sharp turn from the Trump administration's insistence that there was much more to uncover. Even Attorney General Pam Bondi pushed that theory while in office. Take a look.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
But today, the White House says she didn't really mean to suggest that the list itself was on her desk.
She was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. Speak for that.
Joining us now to discuss CNN's Evan Perez and Axios' Alex Eisenstadt, who broke the story on Axios. And Alex, I have to say, I'm with the people that still have questions about.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
But perhaps the biggest bombshell, investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties.
That's right. After months of promising to deliver the goods on the Jeffrey Epstein case, Trump's Justice Department and the FBI have miraculously concluded there is no evidence that Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or was murdered. Cenk, before we get into the details and all of the fallout, are you buying it?
Of course not. Literally no one sane could buy this. And so we'll get into the people not buying it a little bit later in this segment and the show from all the different sides. And we'll get into who is powerful enough to cover this up. But guys, I want you to understand what Jordan just said. The people who said they definitely were the Epstein files and they were definitely going to reveal them and release them are now saying not only is there no Epstein files, even though they were on her desk and there was truckloads of them, there were no Epstein clients. hundreds of victims. The FBI once said it could get up into the thousands. Thousands of victims.
That's bullshit. We know Jimmy Kimmel is one. We know a whole bunch of people are.
Videotapes. Well, those videotapes were for no reason at all. And it doesn't even matter because there was no clients. No one to be prosecuted. Hundreds of victims. Did they victimize themselves? Well, we're going to find out apparently. No, actually, we're never going to find out. Isn't it interesting? Democrats and Republicans, and yet both of them are saying, "Oh no, there's nothing to see there. It's definitely not us or our intelligence agencies or any of our allies. Definitely not." Well, it doesn't matter because there's no clients at all. Then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? Why did that Prince Andrew give a giant settlement? Why did any of these things happen? Why did all of these people say there was, and then they get in and they go, sweat, as we're about to get into in a second. There is no files, there are no clients. Sure. So let Jordan explain to you guys, show you the truth and the lies. But if you believe that there were no Epstein clients, you might be the dumbest person in America.
Let's get into the details. According to a DOJ and FBI memo detailing the findings of their investigation, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. There was also no credible evidence found that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as part of his actions. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. They also conclude that Epstein committed suicide in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York City on August 10th, 2019, which they argue is consistent with previous autopsy findings and video footage. As part of this memo, the DOJ released 11 hours of alleged surveillance camera footage from the common area of the Special Housing Unit, or SHU, where Epstein was held between. And they write in their report, as DOJ's Inspector General explained in 2023, anyone entering or attempting to enter the tier where Epstein's cell was located from the SHU common area would have been captured by this footage. The FBI's independent review of this footage confirmed that from the time Epstein was locked in his cell at around 10:40 p.m. on August 9th, 2019, until around 6:30 a.m. the next morning, nobody entered any of the tiers in the SHU. But as you might remember, that DOJ Inspector General report they cited also revealed very suspicious technical issues with cameras inside the prison. Recorded video evidence for August 9th and 10th for the SHU area where Epstein was housed was only available from one prison security camera due to a malfunction of MCC New York's digital video recorder system that occurred on July 29th, 2019. Other prison cameras continued to provide live video feeds. Recordings were made for only about half the cameras. MCC New York personnel discovered this failure on August 8th, 2019, but it was not repaired until after Epstein's death. The available recorded video footage from the one SHU camera captured a large part of the common area of the SHU and portions of the stairways leading to the different SHU tiers, including Epstein's cell tier. Epstein's cell door, however, was not in the camera's field of view. The two guards assigned to check Epstein's cell overnight fell asleep and shopped online at their desk for about 3 hours and later falsified related records. Nonetheless, the government insists there was no foul play. And now they're trying to say that what they really care about is protecting Epstein's thousands of victims.
Summer of Loud, featuring Beartooth. I prevail.
Of victims.
So, protecting the celebrities and other influential people? Why? So they can still live the kind of life they're living? They're not innocent.
One of our highest priorities is combating child exploitation and bringing justice to victims. Perpetuating unfounded theories about Epstein serves neither of those ends. To that end, while we have labored to provide the public with maximum information regarding Epstein and ensure examination of any evidence in the government's possession, it is the determination of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation that no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. That's a departure from the Trump administration's attitude at the beginning of his term. One day after telling Fox News she had Epstein's client list on her desk, Pam Bondi distributed binders marked declassified to far-right influencers at the White House, but it quickly became clear that the information inside was already public. So Cenk, despite the Trump administration's attempt to scuttle all concern and speculation over the Epstein files has, unsurprisingly, upset the MAGA base and even provoked ally turned enemy Elon Musk. Musk posted this on X early this morning. What's the time? Oh, look, it's no one has been arrested o'clock again, with the official Jeffrey Epstein pedophile arrest counter set at 0. And he also added, this is the final straw, in response to somebody who said, what happened to the client list is on my desk? What happened to the Epstein files part 2? What happened to those magical binders? What a farce. Musk spent the last day making his disappointment clear and amplifying right-wing figures who, for the last several years, have demanded transparency in the Epstein case. And this reignited a recent line of attack against Trump. Musk's skepticism comes just weeks after he accused former ally, President Donald Trump, of being in the Epstein files during an online spat before deleting the claim and admitting he went too far. Musk wasn't alone either. Right-wing agitator Mike Cernovich posted, no one is believing the Epstein cover-up, Donald Trump. This will be part of your legacy. There's still time to change it. Right-wing influencer Jack Posobiec tweeted, I want answers on Epstein, as many as possible, not press releases. Answers. But what many people have pointed out is conservative influencers like Posobiec were brought to the White House in February for exclusive access to the Epstein files. He posted this selfie on February 27th, holding the binder, Epstein Files Phase 1. Another influencer who received one of those binders, Chad Prather, posted, where is the Epstein info the American people were promised? You handed us a notebook and promised more was on the way. You told us it existed, and now you say it doesn't? America deserves answers. But those binders weren't
not just America, the entire world.
Actually revealing. They contained no new information, and the administration promised more would be on the way. On the day of the binder stunt, Rolling Stone summarized it this way. Conspiracy theorists, amateur investigators, and online pranks of all sorts were livid today as they came to realize that documents related to the late pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, released by the Trump administration in a highly publicized spectacle, contained zero new information.
That's ridiculous when people say that America deserves to know. Like, hey guys, nukes could go off and we'll all die no matter what country we're in, but only Americans should know about it. I think this concerns everybody.
Promises of bombshell revelations. Their shock resembled nothing so much as Charlie Brown's surprise when Lucy pulls the football out from under him yet again. And now it seems like nothing ever will be coming. No bombshells, no revelatory information, nothing. Now, even Fox News' Peter Doocy is offering rare pushback to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt over this move from the administration.
0 sugar and 0 carbs. Meat, natural flavor, neutral, refreshing.
Yeah, really.
Hello, guys and gal.
The client list killed itself.
It's me, Mudahar, and what is that award everyone keeps talking about? The Fell For It Award. You know, they pin that little badge on you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today's story is pretty serious. Now, I love horror. Okay, I've always talked about creepypastas, scary things on the internet. But I'll be real, I'm not scared of ghosts or monsters or aliens or anything of that nature, okay? maybe aliens, but I am more scared of what human beings are able to do to each other. One of my favorite horror games is Manhunt, and that's because it's a game that focuses on what human beings do to each other, record them dying and selling it for profit. I mean, it's something that seems absurd, but it's something that can happen. It's something that has happened. Now, when it comes to the wild world of billionaires, yes, victimizing adult children, people that are far, far more infinitesimal to you in terms of power and wealth, yeah, abusing them is kind of like a game to some of these people. And the closest we got to actually seeing that horror unfold was probably an individual known as Jeffrey Epstein. Now, you probably remember this case from years ago. He was a guy that got basically pinched for, again, the entire, human trafficking situation he was involved in. Apparently, headquartered apparently with somebody that was the ringleader of. And he was connected to some of the most powerful people in the world, okay? People from tech like Bill Gates, people in power and politics, I would imagine the Clintons,
Bill Gates wants to save us. That's why he saved all the people in Africa that are dead.
Imagine Trump, I would imagine, I think it was like Prince Charles, anybody that was powerful and wealthy shared some connections with him. Now, for context's sake, this guy was so powerful that even if you showed up in his lists, it didn't necessarily mean that you did anything illegal, right? He was just that powerful. There was a lot of people that went through the guy. But there was also a lot of people that were really friendly with him, to the point where, they went to an island, I think it was the St. James Island, right? An island that, he owned. An island where a lot of evil, terrible, despicable things happened. Now, obviously, Epstein was finally arrested, sent to a federal correctional institution in Manhattan, and there he had taken his own life. Now, I want to just kind of go over some of the weird discrepancies with you. For instance, this is the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. Now, this is a United States federal administrative detention facility, and some would call it that it is the Guantanamo of New York. Now, a lot of people who have the skin tone that I do know a lot about Guantanamo Bay. And let me tell you, it ain't getting 5 stars on fucking TripAdvisor, okay? It's not exactly a friendly sex trafficking charges. Was the first recorded suicide in the actual facility in 21 years.
All right, should we talk about this latest with regard to Epstein? Because this is just, you can't make it up. And as I said before, it connects to Elon because he threw out there, oh, by the way, Trump is in the Epstein files, which Trump and Epstein were friends. Trump was on Epstein's plane multiple times. Trump is pictured at parties with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yep.
So he is in the Epstein files. Exactly what that entails may be another matter. In any case, we now have gone from the Trump administration promising, doing their big photo op with the influencers. Remember this, where they got their binders, Epstein files, phase 1, and Pam Bondi out there saying, I've got the client list on my desk. I'm reviewing thousands of hours of videos. We're going to get you the truth. To now, let's put this up on the screen. They're saying nothing to see here. Nothing to see here whatsoever. The DOJ and the FBI conclude Epstein had no client list. There was no client list.
No client list.
He committed suicide. Absolutely no indication that he was killed, and that he had, any sort of blackmail material on any powerful people. They specifically, investigators found, quote, no incriminating client list of Epstein's.
Pause right there.
Yeah.
The language, this is written by lawyers, the Department of Justice. No incriminating client list, which is not the same thing as no client list. Incriminating is a very subjective term, which could mean that there are a bunch of names in the Epstein book. Basically, we know this. And it's true that not all of those people are incriminated by Jeffrey Epstein mingling with them at a Harvard business fundraising lunch and taking their number down. Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a hell of a wiggle word right there.
So no incriminating client list, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So,
and this,
there you go.
As by the way, Pam Bondi said just a couple of months ago that the Epstein client list was on her desk. Now, the DOJ is saying there's, quote, no incriminating client list, which has been interpreted as them saying there's no client list, understandably, because you would think that a client of Epstein would be not just a financial client
of Epstein, but it's implied when Pam Bondi says she has the quote unquote client list on her desk just a couple of months ago, that is sex trafficking clients of Jeffrey Epstein. That's what she was implying when she said it. So for the DOJ to now, just a couple of months later, say there's no incriminating Epstein client list is a incredibly suspicious, I don't even need to say it, but it's an incredibly suspicious flip-flop that is being done with some careful language, and absolutely nobody is buying it.
Imagine if Epstein's victim that just committed suicide, apparently, but was murdered, was still alive. I mean, it's ironic that all this is coming out, that there's like no client list right after she gets killed.
People in MAGA world are not buying it. Nobody's buying it. The question is how important it is to the people who are not buying it. And I think it's going to be pretty damn important.
You think so?
Yes, I think so. Based on what I've seen so far.
What have you seen?
So Robbie Starbuck, Mike Cernovich, a lot of these online MAGA influencers are absolutely furious. And of course, they're taking it out more on Pam Bondi than they are on Donald Trump.
Of course.
Because Bondi has so far, and some of that actually might be reasonable. Julie K. Brown, who has done some of the most important Epstein reporting, posted back in February. It's interesting to note that Pam Bondi was Florida's Attorney General from 2011 to 2019, a period of time when Jeffrey Epstein's plane records became public, victims' lawsuits were filed, and a lot of new evidence against Epstein surfaced. So questions should be asked about why she didn't take up the case or launch a probe when she was Attorney General in Florida. And this is a persistent problem for the Trump administration. This happened actually, the suicide, the quote unquote suicide of Jeffrey Epstein happened on Trump. And by the way, Bill Barr's watch. Bill Barr's dad was the first person to give Jeffrey Epstein that job at a private boarding school, despite the very strange qualifications he would have.
Okay, as well. So about a day ago, there's been new video released of Jeffrey Epstein's cell, but it doesn't even show Jeffrey Epstein's cell, but they're wanting us to believe it's Jeffrey Epstein's cell. And I can't share my screen, but I will share what's being said.
1 minute that's missing from Jeffrey Epstein's footage. We're talking about the mystery man that appears after lockdown. Who is it? We'll try to get into it because it's not mentioned in the 2023 OIG report. Now, just yesterday, we already talked about the DOJ FBI memo that was obtained by Axios saying that Epstein killed himself, that you guys should stop making conspiracy theories because Kash Patel and Dan Bongino would never lie to you. Even though previously they said, yeah, it's probably, there's a cover-up. Now they're saying there definitely is no cover-up. And in fact, the FBI director, Kash Patel, went on Joe Rogan to tell everybody, you guys are crazy, and we're going to release the inside the jail cell footage proving it.
And you're going to get the video of the cell, and you're going to see for yourself. And we will never be able to convince everyone.
So apparently, we're going to get footage of the cell, which is why when the DOJ dropped a 10-hour video during the time of Epstein's death, people understandably thought this was footage of his cell. Here's what this looks like. It's CCTV footage, but this is not actually Epstein's cell, nor is this door. This is footage of a common area. Epstein's door is way back over here in the corner. You can't see it from this footage angle, but you'd understandably not know that because of the way Kash Patel made it sound. He made it sound like we're definitely dropping the real video. You're going to get outside a periscope view of Epstein's cell.
There's just no way that you could have run an op and had people go into that cell and not have any video of it and not have any people come out and say, hey, yeah, I saw that guy. He shouldn't have been there, the guard or this guy. There's just no access points into places like this in the detention center he was in. If they had gotten into the cell, you would see it.
But we were told that the cameras were down.
Well, I don't know who said that.
But that was in the news.
Yeah, it was in the news. It's also in the OIG's actual report. Like the government report admits that most of the cameras were not recording. Now, I'm going to show you which cameras were and were not recording.
Sorry, just a second.
The Justice Department poured cold water on a conspiracy theory some of its highest-ranking officials helped to promote. The department now says disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein did in fact die by suicide and never had a so-called client list. Lots of damaging and politically important names on it. FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino before.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video here. Epstein now. I shouldn't have to explain who Jeffrey Epstein is. In this video, you probably know who he is. You probably know stories of the 21st century and something that, but like, oh, Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, guys. He reported back to the American public with a very contradictory statement. This is one that obviously goes against all of the evidence and stuff that's already been out there, everything we already know, all of the previous statements that have been made, even by the newly appointed people that Trump brought into the DOJ and the FBI and all these other places. We're at the point now where they're trying to kind of cover this up. They're obviously trying to do whatever they can to make sure that any real incriminating information or proof or evidence of anything that Jeffrey might have done, they're trying to make sure this doesn't make it into the public's hands. And it's very obvious why. They're trying to prevent the mainstream public from knowing the extents of what Jeffrey Epstein and his friends in Hollywood, politics, all these other places of power were obviously all either up to or knew about silently without doing anything about it.
They still do.
It's not you.
Moment.
Means it is.
I just need some.
They made on the screen plain as day, and it changes everything. A full 60 seconds vanished from the footage. Foreign intelligence connections now confirmed. A client list that exists but will never see daylight. And now we know why Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for trafficking children to nobody. The evidence is so damning and so obvious that even the mainstream media can't ignore it. What you're about to see will shake your faith in every institution. So brace yourself for what comes next. Just as the Epstein network operated in the shadows, there's another crisis happening in plain sight. Our bee populations are collapsing. Without bees, our natural food chain breaks down. No pollination means no crops, no food security, and no future. That's why Patriot Bee Best created an educational digest to spread awareness about this critical issue. For less than 17 cents a day, you can support both this show and American Bee Restoration.
Former CIA analyst Buck Sexton joins me now. Buck, it's pretty hard to stomach where we sit today based upon the expectations set by the Attorney General herself just a few months ago.
Yes, and Will, we're obviously at something of a disadvantage because you and I don't work inside of the federal government, haven't seen the evidence that hasn't been public, and also we've now been told a lot of it is not going to be made public. Some of that is understandable because of the nature of the evidence, but some of it I think people still have, when it comes to more like the flight logs and stuff that could be in the public domain or could be more detailed and explained in the public domain. There are a lot of questions about that. So let's just take a step back for a second here. We were told by people with access that there was a lot more coming, and now they drop a Sunday night memo saying, sorry, there's no there in any capacity whatsoever, case closed. That's just not going to fly. There needs to be more of an explanation about things like, for example, where did all of his money come from? And let me be clear, maybe this information is more available or is out there. The FBI and others, the DOJ could make this something that's pretty easy, I think, for people to get their hands on. They should do so. Where did the money come from? Why were there so many levels of systemic failure within the justice system to actually...
Alex, the Department of Justice and the FBI says that pedophile Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide and that there is no client list. This is raising a lot of eyebrows. Let's just look back at what Pam Bondi had to say earlier in the year.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
So have you seen anything that you said, oh my gosh?
Not yet.
Here is Caroline Levitt clarifying what Pam Bondi meant.
So the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein.
according to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox
I've
News.
got the quote.
Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing a list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars.
Alex, what's happened here? A lot of people are not buying this.
Yeah, nobody's buying it here in America. You have the left wing and the right wing yelling at Pam Bondi for some transparency, and sadly, we're not going to get it because I think that the people that are connected to the Jeffrey Epstein debacle are some high, powerful people that would cause geopolitical conflicts with other countries, and I think that's what it really comes down to, that it's now a matter of national security to keep this list private, and nobody on both sides agrees with that strategy. I mean, we all wanted transparency. Donald Trump campaigned on it, and now Pam Bondi is walking back what she said she was going to do. So I'm just telling you, even the most loyal Donald Trump supporters on social media are asking questions. Why are we not getting these answers when you said that they're going to give us? And we don't want to see victims. It's not that we want to try to expose any victims. We just want to expose the actors and the powerful people that were doing this on an island with children. So there's no excuse, and this is a big, missed opportunity from the Trump administration for not giving us the transparency that so many Americans really want on both sides, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. Well, Joe Biden is back. The former president claimed during a rare public appearance that he just keeps getting phone calls from office holders and European leaders asking for advice during the Trump era.
Moment. Your weekly Walmart commercial.
Did notorious financier Jeffrey Epstein die by suicide, or was he murdered? A memo obtained by Axios details the FBI and DOJ's investigation into the mysterious death and Epstein's alleged blackmail network. Their findings conclude there is no credible evidence of Epstein blackmailing powerful figures, no client list, and no proof of any foul play in his 2019 death. The Trump administration says they're releasing raw and enhanced prison footage showing no one entered Epstein's Manhattan prison cell area the night he died. The video, they claim, backs up the medical examiner's ruling of suicide by hanging. Investigators reviewed footage from 10:40 p.m. on August 9, 2019, when Epstein was locked in his cell, until 6:30 a.m. the next day, when he was found unresponsive. The memo says FBI analysts enhanced the video, adjusting contrast, color, and sharpness for greater clarity. Kash Patel, now FBI director, and his deputy Dan Bongino, both former MAGA influencers who once questioned Epstein's death, have reversed course. Dan Bongino said bluntly to the media that Epstein killed himself and that he had seen the whole file. But the footage itself hasn't been independently verified, and Axios reported that links provided by the DOJ don't work. In February, Attorney General Pam Bondi told Fox News the Epstein files, including a supposed client list, were sitting on her desk awaiting review. She called it a directive from Trump himself. But now, the DOJ says most Epstein materials involve child sexual abuse and won't be made public. Critics are furious. One user posted, "Was Bondi lying then, or is she lying now? We deserve answers." This isn't the first time Trump promised transparency. In 2024, he vowed to declassify the Epstein files, but the new memo says no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted.
For nearly a decade, Epstein's death has been fuel for conspiracy theories. Some believe he was silenced to protect the global elite. Photos of Epstein with Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and even Prince Andrew only added to the intrigue. During their recent feud, Elon Musk put out a jaw-dropping post accusing Trump of being in the Epstein files. But days later, he deleted the post. Trump insists he barred Epstein from his golf resorts in the early 2000s and hadn't spoken to him in 15 years. But Epstein once described Trump as his closest friend in a 2017 interview. The memo makes clear that no one else will face charges in the Epstein case. His former associate Ghislaine Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for child sex trafficking. The infamous contact book released earlier this year contained high-profile names like Alec Baldwin and Mick Jagger, but no incriminating evidence. Now,
and Courtney Love.
Trump's DOJ says the Epstein chapter is closed. But for many, it feels like the most important pages are still hidden.
Courtney Love as well.
And expanded inside sources.
Remember the notorious Jeffrey Epstein, and we've all been sort of waiting for the Epstein files. For our listeners who are unfamiliar or forgotten about him, he was charged with the sex traps.
Incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. For years, Epstein has been at the center of conspiracies surrounding both his death and a rumored client list allegedly used to blackmail powerful men.
And now apparently we're back in business. This one went up recently in Washington, also about 8 feet tall. It's really big. And happy about this one. They put repainted.
All right, she was mostly happy about other stuff. Don't put that in your so.
The Justice Department poured cold water on a conspiracy theory some of its highest-ranking officials helped to promote. The department now says disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein did in fact die by suicide and never had a so-called client list with lots of damaging and politically important names on it. FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, before they joined the Bureau, alleged cover-ups and corruption in the incarceration death of Epstein, the convicted sex trafficker. Today's announcement came after promises of big, blockbustery disclosures. Joining me now, White House correspondent for Semaphore, Shelby Talcott, congressional reporter for Notice, is now released, or what has been released by the Trump Justice Department, and how much it differs from the exaggerated, overheated claims made before those who now release it were in positions of authority.
Well, we've heard these claims for years, going back before President Trump's even first term, about what Jeffrey.
Today in tarantulas and a bowl news, Elon Musk has announced that he will be starting a new political party to take on MAGA. It's called the America Party. And that news comes in the wake of congressional Republicans ramming through Donald Trump's mega bill, which Musk always hated. He called the bill a, quote, disgusting abomination, vowing to primary all those congressional Republicans who passed it, which is all of them. Trump responded yesterday by lashing back with a post on his platform saying Musk has, quote, gone off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past 5 weeks. If Elon Musk.
Here we go, Candace.
All right, you guys, happy Monday. I hope you enjoyed the holiday weekend. I certainly did. We baptized baby Roman. It was my husband's. He went ahead and
oh, wow. Fuck, man. I would like to wake up one day and not have consumerism like put in my face, but that won't happen here.
And there's so much that has happened, and I feel like a lot of it that happened way back in 2007 and 2008 isn't really known to the wider public.
And you know what? Just because of that ad, when I just subscribed to her, I'm unsubscribing. That's annoying as shit.
because we went through this phase where the left and the right, we hate each other so much, way too much to appreciate the bigger picture that was happening in the middle. So I'm going to slow everything down for you so you can truly appreciate how absurd this story is. First and foremost, and this is my favorite part of the Jeffrey Epstein story, is that he is a man who became a billionaire. And the strangest part about his billionaire status is that nobody knows how he became a billionaire. Yeah, they can't tell us that. That's my favorite part of the whole thing, is just like Chris, my editor, mentioned earlier, you don't pay 8 cents of tax money. And they'll be like, right here, my friends, you shorted the government 8 cents. But Jeffrey Epstein, we don't know where he got his billions of dollars. The real story actually begins with a man named Donald Barr. Okay, Donald Barr. And if you're listening to that right now and thinking, Candace, that surname sounds strangely familiar to you, Luke Brunel, again, we're not going to get sidetracked here, delivered this amazing thing so that the victims could not challenge it in court.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients.
That they had flight logs, information, that they had names. I mean, take a listen.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk.
Like Sarah, golden dude.
About the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years here in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now with Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my little Men in Black tool, and just wipe your memory real quick. She didn't say any of that. Cool. Now let's run Caroline Leavitt at the White House briefing earlier tonight. Take a listen.
DOJ and FBI have now concluded there was no Jeffrey Epstein client list. What do you tell MAGA supporters who say they want anyone involved in Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes to be held accountable?
This administration wants anyone who has ever committed a crime to be held accountable. And I would argue this administration has done more to lock up bad guys than certainly the previous administration. And the Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the president's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out
Bad guys? There's bad women there too that are criminals and are involved. The bad guys. Oh my gosh.
memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Caroline. Okay, so the FBI looks at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network, on Fox News, go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that.
There you have it, you guys. That is transparency. That's transparency. I mean, I don't know what more you want from your government. You feel like they're laughing at us. I feel like they're laughing at us. We are definitely in clown world. I'm not a huge Elon Musk fan because I think he plays a role in, the coming AI system of controlling global affairs. But he did nail it with his clown meme tweet. I will say that. We will release the Epstein list. We just need more time. The Epstein list is on my desk. There is no Epstein list. It just happened, just right in our face. And Listen, if I was writing a fantasy novel about Costers getting away with everything, I don't know, like I would, and they're bored with their power, this would maybe be the plot line. The book was written before the plot line happened, so it's almost like it just gets planned, and then they just get so bored. They're like, haha, it would be funny if we just put it in a book. Like, I don't know, just put it in the book, what we're doing. Haha, laughing in everybody's faces. Feels like that. Interestingly enough, though, I was contacted by someone, a certain someone. Those of you who enjoyed my Brigitte series, Xavier Poussard has been working quite diligently over the last couple of years, not just on the story of Brigitte Macron and
All right, hey guys, it's me again, Sam. They train for the Olympics.
That's the background one. Yeah, memo. There's sort of a finality to it.
Yeah, I suppose, but I don't know. This
ticking time bomb, you could say. Just look at the bromance between Elon Musk and Donald Trump and how it ended. It was Elon Musk accusing Trump of hiding the Epstein files because, in his words, Trump's in them. But here's the thing. The list, it's not real. At least not in the way the internet wants you to think. What's really driving the theories hasn't surfaced. After nearly 2 years investigating Epstein, reporting podcasts along Julie K. Brown, Miami Herald journalist who reopened the case, I can tell you the real story is much darker and more complex. And it's not the list or the little black book or the flight logs. By the way, those two are public. So why hasn't the FBI released it? Why is so much of the vault on Jeffrey Epstein redacted? I have some new reporting. After recording this interview on the Young Turks with Cenk Uygur, I spoke to a senior law enforcement official who broke down for me what's actually redacted in this sealed case. And they explained to me why it hasn't been released, because a lot of it is being used for future prosecutions. And
don't know what to sell in 2025?
What the fuck?
Meet Axio, your AI-powered sourcing partner.
No, I don't want to buy and sell anything right now, government. Fuck.
For prosecutions. And prosecutors know that they are going up against the richest people in the world who will have the best defense attorneys in the world. And they don't want to bring the case forward without preparing the best case they possibly can. They're also concerned that any new evidence that's released into the public can be used by Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyers to reopen her case. There's also the privacy concerns of the victims. Many of them were children at the time. They don't want this evidence out there. A lot of them chose to be Jane Does, come forward anonymously for a reason. The FBI declined to comment on the record. I did make 2 mistakes in this interview that I want to correct in full transparency, because sometimes speaking extemporaneously about a very complicated case, this can happen. I said that Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein had a tunnel connecting their houses. That was told to me by a source, but I've never been able to confirm it. I also said that when putting together Jeffrey Epstein's 2006 sweetheart deal, that prosecutors considered that he was a CIA informant. They considered that he was an FBI informant. But there is evidence to suggest that Jeffrey Epstein did speak with the CIA. There were CIA meetings found in Epstein's calendar, so there does seem to be some connection between the intelligence agency and Jeffrey Epstein. I know I sound very cautious, but there are just so many conspiracy theories in this case, and I want you to know that as a journalist, I am here to lay out the facts for you, and I want you to feel comfortable with my reporting. Stick around. This is the story behind the story, and it might explain how a high school math teacher managed to convince some of the richest men in the world to hand over their millions to him and their secrets.
Okay, so now let's, speaking of protected and not protected, let's go to Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yeah.
So you've covered this for a while. So first, fun question. What do you think? Are the files, relevant when we finally see them? Is there something real in the files? And of course, you're guessing. It's your estimation based on covering it. And B, are we ever going to see the files?
Okay, so there's no John Doe list. I'm so tired of hearing people say the list, okay? There is no list. Everybody needs to get over that. There is no list. Now, I've gone through almost all the public files, and those are the files that Pam Bondi put out. There was nothing new. It was a complete joke when she did that, and she used these right-leaning influencers as props in front of the White House with her classified binder. Nothing in there was classified. It was Virginia Giuffre Roberts' All of those were her court documents, basically. She's a very good friend of mine. I worked on the podcast with her, Broken, Jeffrey Epstein. Definitely check it out. We traveled all over and we found witnesses to corroborate her case and the case of so many others, and they ended up using it actually to prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell, the only person, by the way, who is behind bars right now, despite the fact that this is like the largest sex trafficking operation maybe in our modern time right now. It's unclear, at least in America. But the point is that no one has paid the price for this, and there's absolutely evidence that hasn't been released. There's photographs, I'm sure. There are videos. The girls told me that they basically filmed everything. There were videos of everything. They were constantly collecting compromise. So I'm sure the FBI has that. Problem is there are minors, okay, involved in this. And so I could see why they don't want to make that footage, that data public, because there are a lot of women's names. There are, the names of children, now women. There are graphic photos. I remember Virginia telling me that she was brought into the FBI and they saw a picture of her being raped by a very prominent person. I don't want to mention it right now because, I feel uncomfortable speaking about her and her experience in her death. It's something that she didn't talk about publicly. But yeah, they have photographic evidence. That's probably what they're withholding, and the videos, that footage. They could certainly try to prosecute these people.
Yeah, so
I don't know what's stopping them.
So,
Some of the names that I've heard, I can understand why they're not prosecuting them. They're very powerful people.
Yeah. So, a word you use might explain it. You use the word compromise, and that's having, compromising information about a public official that you could then use, presumably, to blackmail them and influence them. And so, who was collecting this as compromise?
Oh, Epstein was. He was absolutely collecting it.
Just Epstein? Or do we think there was someone behind Epstein?
Oh, you think Mossad? Is that what you're thinking? I know that he was helping the CIA. I remember seeing that in some of the data, in some of the documents, that he had offered some some information to CIA. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was factored into his sweetheart deal. I mean, he did travel a lot. He was friends with Ehud Barak. He was constantly. He was constantly among powerful people. He picked up things and he passed it along, and that was a factor in his sweetheart deal. Do I think he also did that with other intelligence agencies? I don't think Epstein was a particularly upstanding gentleman. So I think, it's possible. I just don't have any, I've never had any data to suggest that or know anything about that. But I know that the people he spent time with certainly had those contacts. He knew people at the highest levels of many governments. And I could see them seeing him as being a useful person. I mean, it's really unclear to me how a guy who was a high school math teacher suddenly becomes a billionaire, right?
He was a high school math teacher.
Right. He was a high school math teacher.
No, I know. That's what's funny. I mean,
Lex Wexner is the only reason he has billions of dollars. It's crazy. I mean, he was teaching at Dalton, trying to pick up students. They had to get rid of him.
Yeah, well,
Bill Barr's father actually was like, "You're done. You're out."
So hold on, I want to talk about that more. So first, for the audience, Ehud Barak's former prime minister of Israel, and the person who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal back in, I think, 2008 down in Miami was Acosta, who then later became Trump's labor secretary in his first term. And he was a
his lawyer was Ken Starr.
Yeah.
Epstein's lawyer was Ken Starr, who you all know.
Yeah, that is so curious, right? So
he hired Republicans and Democrats when he did this. He made sure to have the full gambit.
Yeah.
So that he could work every angle.
So tell us about Lex Wexler. You said he picked him up and turned him into a billionaire. Who is he?
Les Wexner is the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret. He created Victoria's Secret.
Connected to Gabe Hoffman, who sued me and made a public example out of me in 2020.
And Now he's disgraced. I believe the board took it away from him. But I mean, he's obviously someone that Epstein would be attracted to. He's the man who creates Victoria's Secret angels, right? He had access to the runway show, the lifestyle, and they became very good friends. In fact, Jeffrey Epstein helped introduce Les to his wife, Abigail. And it's very weird because most people say that Les was not exactly a party animal. He wasn't like Jeffrey, who liked to be out and about. But they were very close to the point where they had houses right next to each other. And there was a tunnel that connected the two houses on the Upper East Side. These are the largest mansions and Epstein bought Les's apartment for $20 million, markedly underrated, like underpriced. Their relationship was very weird to the point where some people suggested that they might be lovers, that they were that close.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, the underground tunnel connecting their houses. I mean, especially knowing Epstein, I mean, that reeks of creepy. But you know, if Les wasn't into that lifestyle, you know, but somebody's collecting compromat, maybe connects to the people who are collecting the compromat. We don't know. I don't know, but it's impossible not to ask questions because there's the biggest bucket of compromat the world has ever seen, and the idea that the intelligence agencies would not be interested in that is preposterous. And then he shows up dead in a maximum security prison in America with the video camera not working in the hallway and the guards on break and
Hey, Allison, good morning.
his roommate removed. All right, so let me ask you that.
I'm with you though. I think it's very suspicious. I'm not very conspiratorial. I'm really not. I try to live in the fact world, but there are a lot of coincidences in that story. I mean, and there was the cop from Long Island inside of the who people say. I mean, CBS News suggested he could have been paid off privately.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
so I don't know as much about that one. So look, for just real quick, so you know, Tara, I said live on the air when we found out that he got killed. I said if the camera in the hallway is working, then it was a suicide. If the camera in the hallway was not working, then he was killed. And when we found out later the camera isn't working, I'm like, there are no coincidences that large. Like the most valuable prisoner.
He bragged that he was Trump's boy, that Trump was his boy, and that he would never prosecute him. He did that just years before he was arrested.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he's so despondent that he's going to kill himself when he thinks Trump's never going to prosecute him. And by the way, there's very good reason for believing that. They were friends for a long time. And when Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested and they asked Trump about it, he said twice that she's a very fine person. So he knows her. I mean, that is an unbelievable thing to say about the top groomer of our lifetimes. For the president to say that is just stunning. But tell me more about the cop.
I'm happy you called her a groomer, by the way, because that is what she was. And she's often inappropriately and disrespectfully to these girls called a madam. And it's like, no, you cannot be a madam to a 14-year-old. They're children.
Yeah.
You know,
it's textbook groomer. Textbook.
Yeah.
Download BetMGM Casino, the casino born in Vegas.
Welcome to the United States of America, where the sitting president of the United States happens to be a deranged, demented, convicted felon whom we call Taco Tits, who fights all the time with his idiotic former best friend, the world's richest man and untreated drug addict who trips on ketamine all the time and gets on Twitter at 4 a.m. to put out bangers like this. So here, first of all, is Trump's post to his idiotic former best friend. I am saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck over the past 5 weeks. He even wants to start a third political party, despite the fact that they have never succeeded in the United States. The system seems not designed for them. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos, and we have enough of that with the radical left Democrats who have lost their confidence and their minds. Republicans, on the other hand, are a smooth running machine. that just passed the biggest bill of its kind in the history of our country. It is a great bill, but unfortunately for Elon, it eliminates the ridiculous electric vehicle mandate, which would have forced everyone to buy an electric car in a short period of time. I've been strongly opposed to that from the very beginning. People are now allowed to buy whatever they want, gasoline-powered hybrids, which are doing very well, or technology, American supremacists. It's very easy. U.S. two-party system. That is.
Okay, just a second.
Hello, everyone. This is JVL.
After I read the initial story back when it was in the Tampa Bay Tribune, more or less, there were, there's data points going in lots of different directions. One of which was that the failure to prosecute Epstein, the guy who failed to prosecute him, was in Trump's first cabinet. I'm blanking on his name right now. And he ended up resigning when it all came out. So then there are the people who are like, it's because they changed the rules during COVID and they rigged the thing. This person to give Jeffrey out, they say that they are not going to release any of the allegedly fact.
Day is about to end or come up or whatever, I believe. Yeah. Do we have another clip? We have another clip ago in that when stuff gets leaked to them, it's always for a reason. In this instance, it's almost as if you were to look at the front page of the paper and, or let's just say, go to Google News, for instance. And
the FBI looked at the circumstances surrounding the death of Jeffrey Epstein. According to the report, this systematic review revealed no incriminating client list. So what happened to the Epstein client list that the Attorney General said she had on her desk?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what the Attorney General said in that interview, which was on your network on Fox News. Go ahead.
John Roberts said, DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen? And she said, it's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Yes, she was saying the entirety of all of the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, and I'll let her speak for that. But again, when it comes to the FBI and the Department of Justice, they are more than committed to ensuring that bad people are put behind bars. They have an operation going on right now called Summer Heat, which has our murder rate trending in the lowest direction in United States history. Their emphasis on violent crime and locking up violent criminals has led to the arrest of 14,000 violent criminals. That's a 62% increase from the same time period last year. So this Attorney General and the FBI Director are committed to putting bad people behind bars where they belong. They promised an exhaustive review. That's what they did. For any further details, I would refer you to the Department of Justice.
So let me get this straight. Apparently, when Attorney General Pam Bondi said this,
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump. I'm reviewing that. I'm reviewing JFK files, MLK files. That's all in the process of being reviewed because that was done at the directive of the president from all of these agencies.
apparently that didn't mean the client list was on her desk, but rather that all of the paperwork in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes were on her desk. And if you're thinking to yourself, that doesn't really make sense, you'd be right. It doesn't, because it is a desperate lie. And when you tell lies on top of lies on top of other lies, this is what happened. You're left spinning a web of lies so clearly false that you just sound like an absolute joke. Perhaps this.
All right. One moment.
Says the body of Jeffrey Epstein showed signs of homicide
despite an official ruling that he killed himself in a federal prison facility. The pathologist hired by Epstein's family says neck fractures present on the body are not consistent with the ruling.
A top forensic pathologist says Jeffrey Epstein's death may have been a homicide, not a suicide. The disgraced financier was found hanging in a New York City prison cell in August. Dr. Michael Bodden, the city's former chief medical examiner, was hired by Epstein's family to observe the autopsy and says the findings are more consistent with homicide.
3 fractures of the thyroid cartilages and the hyobones, which are unusual in hanging suicides.
Epstein was awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls. The 66-year-old had been placed on suicide watch on July 23rd, then taken off 6 days later. The night of his death, he wasn't checked on for several hours.
Occasionally there'll be a guard who falls asleep and it fudges that he was awake, as happened here. But never 2 guards at the same time. I mean, that's the chances of that happening is like winning the lottery or something.
Biden says evidence of a bedsheet put around Epstein's neck could help prove whether or not someone else was involved in his death.
The DNA would tell whose fingers were on the ligature at the time.
Virginia Giuffre, a prominent accuser of Jeffrey Epstein, has passed away. According to NBC News, citing Giuffre's family, the 41-year-old died by suicide in Near Gabby, Australia, where she had been living for several years. Virginia's family says in a statement to NBC News, "It is with utterly broken hearts that we announce that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia. She lost her life to suicide after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking." The statement added, "Virginia was a fierce warrior in the fight against sexual abuse and sex trafficking. She was the light that lifted so many survivors. In the end, the toll of abuse is so heavy that it became unbearable for Virginia to handle its weight." Earlier this month, Virginia's rep confirmed to People magazine that she was released from a hospital in Perth, Australia, 1 week after announcing that she had been given 4 days to live following a car accident. According to Virginia, her medical ordeal came after her car collided with a school bus driving at nearly 70 miles per hour. No other details about the crash, including when or where it occurred, had been given. Per NBC News, Giuffre was one of the...
Yeah, and it was a minor incident with a bus. Even the bus driver said that. Just a sec. So, Virginia Roberts. It's ironic that she dies 2 months ago, and now the Epstein files, the news regarding it has totally changed. Apparently, there was no client list. There never was. That's the mainstream news right now, saying that. Let's look more into Virginia Roberts. Obviously, she did not kill herself.
Giuffre's dad and attorney are reportedly questioning how she died. Giuffre was a vocal and visible accuser of Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. She was found dead on her farm outside Perth, Australia over the weekend, less than a month after she made headlines again after posting a picture of herself in a hospital bed saying she had just days to live. There are also now reportedly questions about what will happen to the money that Prince Andrew paid her in an out-of-court settlement in 2022. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Wondery Plus. Now let's get to what we know at this point involving Virginia Roberts Giuffre. On April 25th, she was found dead at her home outside Perth, Australia. Giuffre was American, but she moved to Australia in 2020 with her husband. The couple had 3 children, all teenagers. Giuffre and her husband had been in the middle of a custody dispute at the time of her death. Some members of Giuffre's family say they aren't ready to determine how she died. Her dad, who's named Sky Roberts, told TMZ he wants her death investigated. He points to social media posts like this one that his daughter made in 2019 where she writes, quote, "I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quiet." Giuffre's lawyer also spoke to UK media outlet The Sun and said, quote, "When I got the call, I was like, are you joking? Because there was no sign that was something she was considering." To understand what Virginia Giuffre may have been dealing with at the time of her death, you have to go back to the beginning to understand how so many people learned her name. Giuffre claimed that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her when she was a minor. She says that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times when she was just 17 years old. This is the now infamous picture that was included in her lawsuit against the prince. It shows Giuffre and Prince Andrew and convicted trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell smiling at the camera in the background. Prince Andrew and Giuffre settled out of court in 2022 after she sued Andrew the year prior. Prince Andrew has denied sleeping with Giuffre. In fact, he denied ever meeting her. In a now infamous 2019 interview with the BBC, he said this about Virginia Giuffre when she accused him of having sex with her in 2001 in London.
"I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever."
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
Giuffre had claimed the prince bought her drinks and they dined together and danced together at a posh, members-only nightclub in London. Prince Andrew said he never spent time with Giuffre, and he claimed the date she claimed that they were together, he was actually with his kids. He went on to say that he didn't know where the bar was in the nightclub because he says he doesn't drink. And in what was an infamous moment in that interview, Andrew disputed Giuffre's description of him profusely sweating. He said this to the BBC in that 2019 interview.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
Giuffre claimed that she met the prince through Ghislaine Maxwell. The former socialite is now a convicted sex offender. Here's her mugshot from 2022 at the Metro Detention Center in New York. She is currently serving 20 years in prison on 5 sex trafficking charges related to the now dead Jeffrey Epstein. He, of course, died in his jail cell in 2019 after he was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges. The medical examiner said he hung himself. I want to take a moment to talk about something important, and that is high blood pressure. Did you know that that is the #1 risk factor for mortality? And 1 in 2 adults have it, but many don't realize they're at risk. It is truly a silent killer that can lurk unnoticed until it's too late. But we do have some good news. You don't have to rely on big pharma to manage it. 120 Life is a blend of great tasting superfruit juices that's been shown to actually lower blood pressure. It is trusted by hundreds of doctors and thousands of people who have seen real results. It's trackable too. Use a simple blood pressure monitor to see the changes yourself, and it's completely risk-free.
Are you fucking serious? Law and Crime? Speaking about Epstein's accuser, and now they're trying to sell us something in the middle of that? Are you fucking serious? What the fuck? That's fucked up. Anyway, just 1 second.
Allegedly thousands. They say they have thousands of videos of Jeffrey Epstein and images, some of which involve victims. They say they're not putting any of it out because it would be inappropriate to put basically this disgusting material into the public view, re-traumatizing victims. Absolutely true. But to say that we are literally closing the case and you are not getting a single shred of evidence from this trove that we apparently have, some of which is just Epstein, I guess, talking to a camera. That's insane.
Right.
We don't even need to say that it's insane, but it's worth saying. Like, this is so insane.
Well, okay, so we've got a few things going on here. We've got #1, the Trump-Epstein connections, which, look, Steve Bannon himself said he thought that Jeffrey Epstein was the only person who could take Trump down. So they're, long relationship, who knows? Okay, and you have, as Emily very effectively put out,
And so we are going to come right back to everything, but we're going to have a music break.
And so you fell into the danger.
All right. Just a second. Oh my gosh. Really? I'm going to end it like this because I want to. All right. see you all later. Have a good day.